There you go.
It's 7:30. I'm calling this meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the agenda, since there seems to be some confusion as to what agenda is out there, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the agenda that was distributed to the council members by the council president. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll. Clerk, please call the roll. Mayor, you're not recognized to speak. You'll have an opportunity to Clerk, please call the roll.
What happened?
There in discussion?
Once we have an agenda, we will have discussion.
Don't have an agenda.
Yeah.
Councilmember Quinn, we're voting on the agenda.
No. No. Yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrams?
Yes.
President Daniel?
Yes. I count 6 yes, 3 no, 0 abstentions. Motion carries. We have an agenda. We will recess for 10 minutes to make sufficient copies for everyone of the adopted agenda.
You are incorrect. You're going to make copies that are correct. So just disregard them. You're going to get fresh copies.
Copy of the agenda has the date July 10, 2018 highlighted. So we're going to continue with the meeting now. We're back from recess. Item number 3 on the agenda, moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedman?
Here.
Councilmember Crucio?
Here.
Councilmember Colombo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Vice President Abrams?
Here.
President Daniel?
Here.
This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record, the official newspaper for the Township of Rockaway on January 8, 2018. Notice was posted on the official bulletin
61 to 35,
of Rockaway Township.
Captain Janicek, I see you're here on behalf of the police department. Will you be serving as the sergeant at arms this evening?
Council President, I'll be instructed to read the following statement.
Captain Janicek, if you could speak into the microphone, it's a little difficult to hear you.
Sure. I've been instructed to read the following statement. Officer Iannelli shall provide security for our meeting. He will address anyone that you rule as being out of order. This is an attempt to have them comply with your request. And lastly, remove them if you order him to do so.
Would Officer Iannelli please identify himself? Thank you. Township Code 2-5.15 decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the sergeant at arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or ask that individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. Be able to hear all that, Officer Iannelli?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have item number 7, approval of the minutes of June 18, 2018 special meeting and June 18, 2018 closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Puzia. Second by Kelly. Is there any discussion regarding the special meeting minutes? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Freeland.
Abstain.
Councilmember Tizio.
Abstain.
Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
Abstain.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Vice President Williamson.
Yes.
President Jennifer.
Yes. I count 6 yes, 0 no, 3 abstentions. Minutes are passed. Next on the agenda, we have council appointments. There are no firefighter or junior fireman's auxiliary appointments. There is no appointment for the Morris County CDRS or the zoning board. Item E is what we will be taking action on. Appointment of acting municipal clerk, resolution R 18-129, which all the council members have received. I will move the resolution.
Second.
Is there any discussion among the council with regard to this resolution?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzia.
I would like to make a motion to table this. There were some issues that came up that I think need to be worked out. Without getting into the minutia of it, we can table it. I'd like to see if anyone will second that motion.
I second it.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Council President,
We're calling the roll.
you've been advised that the resolution is inappropriate.
We're taking the roll.
Can I hear from the attorney?
Would you like to withdraw your,
No. I would like to have him explain. We're having some
so
discussion.
you have a motion and a second to table this.
So he cannot speak.
We're taking the roll.
Okay, so you're denying him the ability
When
to
we,
speak.
we're taking the roll, and we come out of taking the roll, we'll be back in discussion. Unless you'd like to withdraw your motion, then we can go back into discussion.
No, then I'm waiting for him to actually explain why some of us are having issues with the resolution.
We're voting.
Thank you.
So we're voting to table this. A yes vote will table it, a no vote will continue discussion and allow continued action. Clerk, please call the roll. A yes vote will table this resolution, preventing any further action on it at this meeting. A no vote will allow us to go back into discussion on the resolution and then potentially take action. Everyone understand what a yes vote means, what a no vote means? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Freelander.
Yes.
Councilmember Cruzio.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo.
No.
Councilmember Smith.
No.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly.
No.
Vice President Abrahamson.
No.
President Jenkins.
No. I count 5 no, 4 yes, 0 abstentions. Resolution is not tabled. We will continue discussion.
Can I continue?
Do you have a question?
I would like our attorney to explain, give a little bit of background information as to, you produced a legal opinion, and that is effectively why I voted the way I did, and I would like for him to explain it.
Does anyone else have any question or comment before we hear from the attorney?
No, I'll second that, and want to hear from the attorney on his opinion.
Mr. Giacomo?
The resolution in question is labeled R-18-129. I received a copy of the resolution at about 4 p.m. this afternoon from Council President Jedniak. His communication read, please find attached resolution R-18-129 appointing an acting municipal clerk that the council will be taking action on tonight, which we will presume is satisfactory as to form of legality unless we hear from you otherwise. At 5:04 p.m., I responded to the council president with copies to the mayor, the acting administrator, my partner, and our office manager. And I advised the council president that I was unable to approve the resolution. As some may recall, our administrative code requires that all ordinances and resolutions be approved by the township attorneys. The immediate reason for my disapproval is the apparent lack of a certification of available funds from our CFO. However, it appears that the resolution exceeds the authority of the council. More specifically, the council has the authority to appoint the clerk, in this case an acting clerk. However, it appears that the mayor has the exclusive power to set the salary for the position, citing NJSA 4069A-43 and 69A-43A. The resolution purports to set a salary for the acting clerk in the amount of $70,000. That is, in my view, and was in my view, an encroachment on the role designated by the statutes to the administration, and particularly the mayor, and I felt that the resolution was infirm for that reason as well. Also, the proposed resolution cited an incorrect date for the retirement departure of our prior clerk, Ms. Best. It cited that she left to retire December 31st, 2018. I advised Council President Jedniak that the correct year was 2017, and I did not have any information as to Ms. Best's actual retirement and departure date, so I left the date of December 31st alone. That was my opinion, as communicated to the Council President at 5:04 p.m. today.
The date has been corrected on the copies that the council members received of the resolution. Thank you for pointing that out. With regard to the lack of certification of available funds, there wasn't a certification of available funds with regard to the resolution appointing an acting municipal clerk in January, or a previous iteration that we received in the last 2 weeks. Additionally, the business administrator appointment that's later on the agenda also doesn't have a certification of funds. As well as, I'll note that our CFO is not present this evening. And I'll note that our Township Code 2-5.4 requires the presence, uses the word shall attend every meeting of the council the business administrator, the assistant business administrator, the township attorney, the clerk, CFO, and the engineer. So where is our CFO this evening? And who is acting in her stead? Mhm. So, Mr. Mayor, you're acting as the CFO this evening. Is that what you're suggesting? With regard to the authority to set the salary, I got your email, Township Attorney, and I reviewed the statutes, and I brought a copy of the municipal charter law, which is what you referenced. And you're just plain wrong. 40 : order. Sergeant at Arms, would you please address the crowd? 40:69A-43 municipal departments clearly states that the clerk is a department head mandated by the state. You reference that statute. You reference 40:69A-43A. It also clearly states, and I'm quoting here, that the salary, wages, or other compensation paid the director of each department shall be fixed by the council. So it is clearly within the purview of the council to set the salary for the clerk. We did it in January by resolution. And there's absolutely no express authority anywhere for the mayor to set the salary. It's incorrect opinions like this, Mr. Iacofano, the reason that we don't trust your legal advice. The township attorney continues to act in the mayor's interest and not in the town's interest. Are there any other order? You're not recognized. You are not recognized to speak. Are there any further questions with regards to this resolution? Councilman Sackett.
Just wondering, as far as the resumes for the process, I wasn't given all the resumes, and I know Marcy had applied for the position and was never given an interview or anything. She's been filling it for the past 6 months, and no one even interviewed her. Just wondering.
So, Councilmember Sackett, the discussion today will be limited to the resolution before you. We will not be discussing any of the 80+ other applicants who may or may not have applied for the position. So that is the limit of the discussion. So the resolution before us and the appointment before us. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll. Order. Officer Iannelli, if you would please advise the second row here on the left. Keep their... Second row. Clerk, please continue with the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
No.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Cruzio?
No.
Councilmember Colombo?
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. I count 5 yes, 4 no, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. We're now going into closed session for R18-128. Is there a motion? I will move.
We love you, Mark. Thank you.
Second. I will call the roll.
Shame on you.
Officer Iannelli, that's Mrs. Gregg in the back who is yelling out. If there are any further outbursts, please advise the members who are who are being disruptive to please keep their volume down. Councilmember Quinn, this is to go into closed session for R-18-128. My understanding is that Mr. Buzak is not present for R-18-127. Following the scope, will be recessing to go into closed session. R-18-128, closed session, resolution on the agenda before you. Litigation, Datchison v. Rockaway Township. Councilmember Quinn voted no. Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Kuzia. Councilmember Palumbo. Councilmember Smith.
Now, what friend is it?
Councilmember Sackett.
Tucker's friend?
Councilmember Kelly. Vice President Abrahamson.
Yes.
Council President Jednak votes yes. I count 6 yes, 3 no, 0 abstentions. Motion carried. Be going into closed session. Sergeant Arms, if you would please assist in clearing the room. We will recess for 10 minutes.
You all understand what happened here?
We are back in open session. Mr. Abe in the back, are you all set to go? Okay, so thumbs up. Thank you very much. Before we continue, I'm just going to let those who have the agenda that was amended at this meeting. The reason that we had closed session at the beginning was we had resolution R-18-127 with regard to litigation for Morris Common Settlement. Mr. Buzak, who's representing the town, was going to speak to us with regard to that. He had asked the closed session to take place earlier in the meeting by a memo that he sent to the town that was forwarded to me through the administration. I'm not sure why he didn't appear today. Not hiding in the back anywhere. Mr. Buzak, you're not there. So Mr. Buzak isn't here. Ms. Seeger?
He called today and canceled out because the court, something happened in the court today and he didn't move the court session. He called prior to the meeting.
But the memo that he had sent to us stated that he went to the court at a scheduled date that the town had before the court, and the memo that we received stated that the judge was expecting the council to meet with Mr. Buzak in advance of a subsequent hearing. What time did that phone call happen?
I don't know exactly what time, but not like 3. But his memo was right. He asked for a postponement, and then something happened, like lawyers do, with the judge, and he said he no longer needed it.
So, and this is the first that we're hearing that he called to say he couldn't make it. We weren't aware of that when we came in, but our goal was to have both closed sessions, because there's a second one on the agenda, at the beginning to inconvenience you the least. And again, it was requested by Mr. Buzak's order. And it was requested by Mr. Buzak to have his closed session at the beginning. Okay. With regard to the second closed session, there's been a continued effort by Mayor Datchison to instruct the deputy clerk to put a resolution on the agenda labeled R-18-119 to have the taxpayers pay for an attorney for the mayor to sue the council. Personally, I find these actions inappropriate. That Mayor Datchison would again use his executive powers to further his own purposes. Given the, Mr. Mayor, you're not You'll have an opportunity to speak. Given the resolution's obvious relationship to the ongoing lawsuit by Mayor Datchison against the council has sought advice from the council's attorney in the lawsuit, Mr. Inglesino, who's here this evening, and the council has authorized him to chair. Sergeant at Arms, would you please address the audience members? If anyone else,
Sorry.
please remove them from the council chamber.
Why don't you throw everybody out?
Nobody wants to start acting like an adult.
Mr. Inglesino, you have a microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Really here is just to look at a very narrow issue of the resolution that you discussed. And I wanted to confer with Mr. Prohl, and while there may be issues that we don't agree upon, there is one issue that we do agree upon. And that is that each member of the council would have a conflict in voting on that resolution. I know that that resolution continues to appear, and it has caused some consternation, some issues, some challenges. But in speaking with Mr. Prohl, because we want to see what we can work out, I think that we both agree, and he's certainly here and can address this narrow issue from his perspective, that each one of you would have a conflict in voting on that resolution. And so my advice is that if that resolution finds its way on an agenda, that you should take no action on it. It should be removed from the agenda, and it should be moved on advice of council. That's all that I had. And Mr. Prohl, please feel free to comment whether you agree or disagree. I do appreciate the time that you afforded me this afternoon.
Mr. Council President, we did have a discussion this afternoon, and we had quite a number of differences, but we did come to an agreement that, in fact, the resolution that the mayor put on the agenda, it wouldn't be appropriate for any member of the council to vote on that because of a conflict. And so something could be interposed here, the doctrine of necessity. However, we feel there's another form available. Since this is an active litigation, it should go before a judge, and the judge would ultimately make that decision. And so we did have a meeting of the minds on that. I did have a lengthy discussion with your council, but we do believe that, in fact, that is, while it's properly on the agenda because it was placed there by the clerk, it's not proper for any member of this council to vote on that. So my respectful suggestion is that either be tabled or not acted on based on the necessity of recusal from every member of the council.
Okay, thank you. And that, with the vote that took place at the beginning of this meeting to adopt the agenda that was distributed to all of you, the amended agenda that you all received and council members received does not contain that resolution. So that's how we address that. Mr. Mayor, do you have a comment?
Mr. Council President, I'll just say I'm not going to dive into that issue. It's obviously a contentious one. I did speak with council. We've agreed to disagree on that particular issue, but the bigger issue here is that resolution is not appropriate for a vote. It should be, a recusal should be exercised by every member of the council. It will live to see another day in front of the judge, and that's really the appropriate. It avoids a contentious, protracted fight here. It would be unnecessary to have that fight, so I ask you all just to kind of rise to your better selves and sort of move on with that issue.
Yay.
Mr. Mayor, we have addressed this narrow issue. If you have a question about this narrow issue of your resolution R18-119, do you have a question with regard to R18-119? What is your question, Mr. Mayor?
You're in conflict for voting on my lawyer to go up to you. Why weren't you in conflict when you had that special meeting at 9 a.m. to vote to get your lawyers, Mr. Inglesino and 5 other lawyers, to represent you?
The council was sued. The council was a defendant. 5.
Order. If there's another outburst, we will recess. All right. We are recessed for 20 minutes. We will re-adjourn at 9:45.
I'm pretty sure. Good idea. Let's not leave.
Mr. Mayor.
You can't. You don't leaving. Vote on it.
Listen.
If speakers aren't going to be allowed to speak without a background of noise and heckling and yelling, we're going to take appropriate action to address that. So if you want the meeting to continue, my suggestion is that everyone behave according to the standards that I described at the beginning of this meeting.
Would you like to address that?
Please, Mr. Inglesino.
So the question, I believe, Mr. Mayor, tell me if I misphrase it, was what was the basis for the special meeting at which myself and the other lawyers were appointed. The basis of the meeting is that the council as a whole and 5 individual members of the council were sued individually. And the council as a whole obviously had to be represented by an attorney, which is the governing body's right and obligation, and you had to appoint a lawyer to do that. And because the nature of the lawsuit was what they call an order to show cause, which meant that it was filed on an expedited basis, there were very significant time constraints, and so time was of the essence in order to get representation. The reason why there were 5 lawyers appointed was because there were 5 members of the council who were sued individually. And as I suspected, based on the lawsuit, JIF, which is the insurance company essentially that insures the town, declined coverage of the 5 individuals based upon the nature of the lawsuit. When you file what they call a prerogative writ action, there is an exclusion from the JIF policy in which there is typically not coverage. That is not any indication about the validity of the lawsuit. It's just the way the insurance policy is designed. Now, in Rockaway Township, there is an indemnification ordinance. And I'm very familiar with that indemnification ordinance because I helped prepare it when I was in need of something like that back in the 1990s. But the indemnification ordinance is there to protect every employee of this municipality. And for purposes of the definition of employee, you as elected officials are employees. So that if you're sued personally, you don't have to put yourselves at risk financially, that the township will indemnify you, provided that you don't commit bad acts. If you're sued because you made a judgment call, did something somebody didn't like in the course of your duties as an elected official, that the township would be there to indemnify you so that you're not at personal exposure. And so the fact that there were 5 lawyers is because 5 individuals were sued, and they had every right to the protections afforded them under the indemnification ordinance. If those 5 individuals weren't sued, then there would only be 1 lawyer. There wouldn't have been 5. But you know that's the reason.
And Mr. Inglesino, while you're at the microphone, what was the judge's determination with regards to the 5 individuals who were sued?
Well, I mean, the case is pending, and I don't want to prognosticate. I don't want to prognosticate about the case, but I think, as you know, the 5 individuals are no longer a part of the case. And to be honest with you, the mayor's lawyers did not strenuously object to that. I mean, the court did it, as they would say, sua sponte, but the mayor's lawyers did not strenuously object to the 5 individuals being released, but they were sued in the first place. And that is what necessitated the reason, that's what necessitated the hiring of those lawyers.
Thank you, Mr. Inglesino.
$50,000
Right. Mr. Mayor, we could have saved that by you not naming individuals. It's your choice to do that.
We'll say that if you resign. With regard
Mr. Kelly, please.
My council.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I said, Mr. Mayor should be aware, and I know that he knows this, but the public does not. Prior to the litigation beginning of that, there was conversations from one legal counsel to your legal counsel to amend it down to the council itself, removing the 5 prior to the litigation, going before the judge.
and you declined to do that. So before it even came up for the resolution, you could have saved $1,325 that you posted out per hour, less than $5. You chose not to. You chose
Mr. Mayor,
not to.
please stop. You don't have the floor. No, Mr. Mayor. I will also point out that, as Mr. Inglesino did, that, and I explained this at the previous meeting, but I'll say it again, that meeting was the earliest possible meeting time that this council could meet to ensure that attorneys were appointed, given the short time frame that the council's representation needed to appear in court. That's why that meeting happened at that time and date, because of the nature of the short time frame before the court date and the court hearing. With regard to this resolution that we now have a conferring opinion on, and this council cannot take action on, that is the resolution that appeared on the last meeting's agenda, which caused this governing body to have to end the meeting abruptly. Following the officer, the second row, first chair, please remove that person from the. Continue to outburst, please.
This is America, it's not Nazi Germany.
Please.
We have an attorney in the house.
And repeat it, yes, please.
Is this really? It's a civil rights lawsuit.
Order.
Congratulations.
That was the same resolution that appeared at the last council meeting, which the council, after having received advice in closed session, immediately ended the meeting to avoid any liability for all 9 council members who are on this dais. And I'll also note that the mayor, after having sabotaged that meeting with that resolution, proceeded to call a special meeting for the same week, So, you're not recognized, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you're not recognized to speak. Mr. Mayor, you don't care? Okay, Mr. Mayor. You'll have an opportunity later. Fourth row back, second chair. On the white shirt, would you please advise the gentleman to please keep his volume down with the glasses?
It's not a good use of my back.
The next item on the agenda is open to the public. First on the list, excuse me. Ordinance 2-5.14 requires that any comments or questions made during the public portion of the council meeting must be addressed to the council as a whole and not any individual council member. The failure to comply with this ordinance may result in the termination of any further opportunity to address the council at that session. All speakers must be first recognized by the council president before speaking. All comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole and not any individual council member. Speakers have 5 minutes each to speak per Township Code 2-5.14. At the conclusion of 5 minutes, an alarm will sound indicating that the speaker's time has expired, and the individual speaking is expected to immediately relinquish the microphone so that the next individual may speak. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to the rules. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to the rules. and when an individual's speaking time has expired. If at any time a speaker ignores the gavel or refuses to relinquish the microphone, the Sergeant at Arms is directed to assist the individual in relinquishing the microphone and remove the individual from the meeting as necessary. First on the list is Joe Rach. Please state your name and address for the record.
Is my time starting?
Has started.
Okay. I stand for the shenanigans that have been going on with this council. First of all, the need for a sergeant at arms. I don't know, what are you afraid of? That's my question. What are you afraid of? You need a sergeant at arms at your meetings. You haven't done township business in the last 3 meetings. And you haven't appointed, you haven't done your appointments that have been on those, on for those meetings also. And transparency is non-existent. And I do resent the fact that I am pointed at to go and be quieter than your president.
Next on the list is Doug Erich. Please state your name and address for the record.
Decline.
Next on the list is Dave Press. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Dave Press, 71 Oakland Avenue. I'll try and say this quickly because I have a number of comments. Unfortunately, I was unable to be here for the public portion of the last council meeting, so I'm going to try and cover everything. I would have said at one of the partial meetings, I'm not sure which one because there were so many of them. I hope that many comments are made tonight by members of the public who were unable to do so previously because they foolishly thought they would have been able to do so at one of the partial meetings that occurred when the council rules were made up as the meetings went along, when they actually did go along. After a recent meeting, a certain council member cautioned me because, according to that certain member, I had lied. This was in response to my statement about the lawsuit that was filed regarding county committee petitions. Even if someone thinks I got the dollar value of something wrong, even if I did get the dollar value of something wrong, the point I had raised was not so much the dollar amount, but the fact that whatever the amount was, it shouldn't have been spent. In case anyone has forgotten, this was the lawsuit that was based on documentation provided to the individual whom had filed it by Ms. Abramson and Ms. Smith. And while on their subject, while in the lobby at another meeting, Ms. Abramson accused the members of the public of bullying. I pointed out to her that bullying was coming from the front of the room, not from any members of the public. Finally, as you continue to wreak havoc upon us, just remember, your day of reckoning is coming. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it's coming.
Lisa Salberg, 10 Bergen Hill. This is a really sad day. Again, the way that this council is acting with...
Excuse me, can you please pause for a moment?
Oh.
Why? The battery on our timer is expiring.
So my battery's not working. Okay.
All right, starting you now. Please continue.
As I was saying, how disappointed I am in this council. So you tried to do what you did on Facebook by posting your version of what happened in court. I was actually in court. I think your counsel saw me there. I don't know what you guys are really trying to do. You bring up criminal charges in an open public meeting against a town employee and a town attorney, call them criminals, and you wonder why our town needs an attorney to represent itself to file a suit against you because you're acting inappropriately? This has to stop. Right now, today, I think everybody here agrees, this is nonsense. We're not getting any business done. And there's one person who can help organize it. And he's not doing his job. So there's committees meeting, and there's people talking, and there's lots and lots of people who really want to see change. So you change your attitude, or you lose your job.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Mick Jacobs.
Decline.
Thank you. Next on the list is Michael Ilardi. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Ilardi, 19 North Brookside Drive. On last month's resolution for the approximately $450,000 for the 5 attorneys that was passed, and since my understanding is the court ruled it can only be the lawsuit against the council as a whole, is that resolution going to be revisited and changed? Since we're not going to have 5 or 6 attorneys, we're going to have 1. I would like to have a resolution so that money can't be allocated and put into our taxes next year. I brought up the recycling truck last month. It just happened to come again today and did the same thing. One side of the street and came back, did the other side of the street. I don't know if the town has any recourse against empty homes, but 14 Cayuga and White Meadow Lake has been empty well over a year, could be 2 years, and there's been no maintenance done to it. The grass is 2.5 feet tall, the leaves are piled up in the front. Phone books that were delivered 6 or 8 months ago are sitting there. I don't know who has authority to address that, if the bank owns it at this point or what. 14. The liquor license resolution that was on the agenda last month that said from July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. Well, we're 10 days into the month. Was that resolution ever addressed prior to the end of June? And if not, what did those businesses have to do to continue to sell liquor? And the resolution you have on the agenda tonight for White Meadow Lake for the ski team, I would appreciate your support in that. And you're all welcome to come and see. It's a very good show. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the list is Mr. Desai Jawahar. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jawahar Desai, 15 Lear Place.
One moment, I'm just resetting. Wow. I want to make sure you get your full 5 minutes. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Council President and members of the council. This is Jawahar Desai, 15 Lear Place. It's my first experience addressing a council in this way. It's unfortunate it's under these circumstances. I previously lived in Lincoln Park, which had a very functional council and cooperative with the mayor. I would hope that in Rockaway Township, which has a long and rich history, that all of you have find the good sense to work cooperatively once again, rather than wasting our taxpayer money, remembering that you all work for us, the taxpayers and the voters of this town. So I hope that you all can find it in you to be human, to have a good sense, to work together cooperatively and not spend, apart from spending the money, just be decent to each other and work cooperatively. So, I mean, what I've seen here today, I'm a little disappointed with the kind of hearted attitudes and some of the strange votes which happened. I hope you all can see fit to examine internally how you're behaving and how you're acting in terms of this town, and do what's good for the residents. Otherwise, as a previous member of the public stated, I personally would feel constrained to support some kind of option to remove some of you from office. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
Next, please state your name and address for the record.
Stacy Gregg, 40 Sunrise Road. Let me know when my 5's
started. As soon as you said your name.
Oh boy. Ooh. All right, so it wasn't put on the agenda, what was spoken about, which you had the little tit for tat with voting. The town acting municipal court wasn't on the agenda. Just want to throw that out there so that you, as far as what it was about. I'd like to get an explanation as to why a job is raised to $70,000 to someone that's unqualified as far as their resume. The road department, and I thought it was very distasteful what was happened where the poor woman had to, ran out, and I don't see the new person on the job. Where is the person? But if someone from the council could answer that. Road department, did that person ever get an answer from the last meeting? I don't think he was able to schedule our roads getting done. It was very improper that he had to go through the channel of the public open session, but we never got an answer if he got his money and if we're going to get our potholes filled. Elephant in the room, you addressed it a little bit, but I feel that I'm owed an apology as to having 5 people walk out, not even come back, no explanation what was going on at all. I only have 40 more minutes. Like, what the heck? Who does that? It's inappropriate, it was rude, it wasn't fair to send 4 people back into the room. As far as a dictatorship, why do we even bother coming here? Every single thing is set up so that 5 people vote. There's no reason. This is the dictatorship that we now have in Rockaway Township, and we need to let all our friends and neighbors know, that the council needs to let people know, don't bother coming to our meetings, we'll have our own and we'll vote whatever I want as a president. Sanctuary, I want to bring up different things. I have how many minutes? 3. The officer complying to remove anyone you put your eyes to is unappreciated and disrespectful. I will not be intimidated. I'm going to keep coming up here. People are asking me questions. You're not running this meeting and answering the people's questions. Any of the council that's up there, I don't want to be addressing you directly, Jeremy, because you get upset with that. I've been wanting to bring up since the beginning of the year sanctuary townships. We have an issue going on in our country. We want to make our township into a sanctuary town. It hasn't been, thank you. Those who can show their applause, that would be great. I also want to bring up Mallory's Army. There's a lawsuit that's going on. It hasn't been addressed at all, brought up in any capacity on a township level in the public session. We've been messing with this other stuff. Mr. Inglesino taking over, I resent my tax dollars putting 1 more penny into his pocket. Keep clapping. I'm just going to list the reasons why. Let them hear your claps. Fox Hills fiasco. The water on my street, I had a fiasco. I was promised it for years back in 2002. Smart Salkind, shoddy materials. Mary Hart was misadvised that they could build on wetlands determined by the DEP. I had to fight that as far as the pileated woodpeckers and the other endangered animals on that road. We're sitting with 2 vacant buildings that were supposed to have Constitution Road running over here to the library for the needed parking we have. Mr. Inglesino was kicked out of Parsippany. I do not want him back in my township. I covered it. Oh, and Susan and Paul wanted to speak. I think it was very rude and inappropriate. Every other town council that I've gone to, they allow people to speak at the end when the last person that signed in, they said, is anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Like a human being, they say it to the public, and then people raise their hands and they say, oh yeah, okay, I'll take your name down and you go in order. Nobody leaves being unheard. We pay our tax dollars and your constitutional right to be heard by your government.
Pat Degnan, please state your name and address for the record.
There you go, Pat.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I'm very, very disappointed in the actions of the council. We are not doing township business, and to embarrass a young woman who has worked extremely hard since the beginning of the year, the way this council embarrassed Marcy tonight was a disgrace. The agenda is changed month after month after month. I pick it up online so I can go through everything, so that if I have questions, I can ask my questions when I read the resolutions. Why this time the firefighters was under appointments and not under the consent agenda? It seems to me that you keep changing the agenda to suit yourself.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Eric Witkowski.
You kicked him out.
Next on the list is Emily Coleman.
You kicked him out.
Emily Coleman, 18 Lakeshore Drive. I just wanted to say that I've been coming to these meetings for years, and since you all have taken over, the feeling and the atmosphere in the room is just evil and mean-spirited. We are a beautiful town, we're a beautiful community. We love each other, and we don't expect to come to these meetings and be made to feel horrible and that we're going to be taken out by police officers. This is a town. This is not some kind of trial every 2 weeks. Please, start acting like we're all in this together and it's not you against us, because that's not how we want things to work. We want to be together, we want to get along and carry on with the greatness of this town, because it is a great place.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Joy Weinreich. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joy Weinreich, 7 North Brookside Drive, Rockaway, New Jersey. I just wanted to make sure that all you guys on the council know that Sunday, July 15th, at 11 a.m., Hibernia and Calumet corner is when we will meet for our parade. I would like to invite the council and the mayor and everybody in the audience to please put all our differences aside and come and enjoy the day.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Katie Platts. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Katie Platts, Tuville, Halloway. Let's be honest. We didn't abruptly end the meeting last time. You ran out the back door. You said, let's break for a recess. Everyone was sitting outside, and you scurried your way out the back door without telling anybody that the meeting was over. I think only one councilman walked with his head high out the front door. So there was no end. You never even mentioned it to your constituents who sat here and waited late at night. We all have lives. And you didn't even mention it. You just ran out. So your attorney's here. I heard that there was some sort of recommendation that for some reason you couldn't return and let everybody know that we were ending the meeting. Since we're still paying for his services, maybe afterwards he can explain if he indeed directed you to leave out the back door. And in between now and then, the mayor called a special meeting because there was lots of town business that needed to take place that when you ran out didn't get taken, that ultimately wasn't accomplished. Specifically, naming a business administrator and getting the continuation of liquor licenses. I run a business. The idea that you just ran off with no care at all for the businesses in this town and how they make money is absolutely unacceptable. When you walked out that door because of self-interest. You weren't thinking about the town or what needed to get done or the fact that people were here. You walked out because for some reason or another you found it was advantageous for you to leave. Now after that, there was a meeting called immediately so that that same town business could take place, and there was not that resolution that you're claiming is the reason you left. That wasn't on there. We can all look at the agenda. You didn't show up. Councilman Smith, Councilman Kelly, Councilman Abramson, Councilman Jedniak, Councilman Palumbo, you just didn't show. But you happen to be here about 30 minutes later to file a criminal complaint against someone who said something about you on Facebook that you just are so, that led you to such fear that you have to bring a criminal complaint. Again, you didn't show up for the town, but you showed up for yourself because in some way or another, you think that that's going to help you personally. And also in the interim, Councilman Kelly, you found out there was a meeting that Councilman Puzio and Councilman Sackett were attending in public. And you ran to a diner, took out a picture, and sent it to David Wildstein. David Wildstein is the brainchild of Bridgegate. He decided when a Democratic mayor wouldn't endorse a Republican governor who was going to win in a landslide, that he was going to shut down Fort Lee. And the idea that your priority is to take a photo and send it to a political agitator where the only purpose of that could possibly be to further break up this council. I'm not here to criticize. I'm really not. I'm here to say, let's work together. There's so much that we could do if our priorities were the township, our businesses, our community, instead of what will advance theoretically, because I think the community is coming to a conclusion that indeed there needs to be change, but theoretically, it will somehow or another advance you personally. I've said it before, you are creating intentionally chaos. This is not the Senate. This isn't the United States Congress. If Councilman Puzio meets with a Democratic candidate for Congress, do you think anybody cares? People here care if we have our businesses are successful, if we are able to have good activities and recreation for our children. That's what we care about. So please, the idea that we abruptly ended that meeting is a fabrication and a lie. You ran out the back door. Please, tell me, why did you not have the decency, all of you that walked out, why didn't you, I want you all to answer me, why did you not have the decency at least to tell everybody that was waiting for hours, you know what, this is over. Thank you.
The meeting is now closed to the public.
What's being recorded? Answer the question.
Right?
Don't we get answers?
No, we can answer when we just talk to the wall.
We're talking to the wall. They're coming, he's choosing which ones he wants to do.
Oh, so wasn't he thinking like, can they go?
No, so right now they're discussing which ones they're going to answer. Because not all of them get answered. He picks which answer, right? He can choose. You should be good. Come to the parade.
Sorry, I won't go with it.
Mike, did you ever get yours ever answered? Never. Right? Six weeks in a row you came and not once
I
did
had
they ever answer yours?
my thing about property. I filed my inspection request. Yes,
With regard to the recycling truck, Mr. Alardi, I believe, brought that up at the previous meeting. Does the administration have anything to say with regard to the recycling truck issue?
They just go up the block and they have their own little route and then come back down. They're not going to go up the street and turn around and come back down. Same thing with UPS. We do, UPS always stays on the right-hand side and we come back and go to the left. So basically, like that's what's going to happen. For safety reasons, they stay and they just go around and come back. Could be half an hour later, like I said. Could be 15 minutes later, could be hours later. Certain parts of the way, that's what this thing is. Like Bertram, they'll come up my street, or come down Richard, and then come back up the other way.
Okay, Mr. Alardi, that's the answer to that question. 14 Cayuga empty homes. I know that the governing body has had conversations previously about empty homes not being maintained. I believe sometime in the last couple of years an ordinance was passed with regard to that. Mr. Mayor, administration.
Yeah, we got it. We'll go up to this one. They hold a bank, lien holder.
And if the lien holder is, if there is a lien holder, if there's a bank that owns it.
We go up to the banks. Most of the ones we're doing right now.
With regard to the resolution, the emergency appropriation resolution, that was at the on the agenda for the last meeting. That resolution was presented by the administration, specifically the CFO. She's not here today, and as you heard me ask earlier whether there's anyone standing in for her, there doesn't appear to be. So we don't have an answer. Ms. Seeger, are you standing in for the CFO this evening? So the question is, will an additional resolution be submitted for the consideration of this governing body to amend the $450,000 that was requested at the last one?
It's already been sent down for approval to there, doesn't mean we have to spend it, but we already sent that down to get approval. And it's only a one-time shot, and we don't know what's going to happen or when the case is going to end. I can't predict that.
Yeah, probably not. We're probably not going to take anything back because we got to work in action with the Mallard case, with these cases coming up and anything else.
That appropriation could be for additional cases.
Oh, yeah, it's not just, it's just for emergency funding for attorney.
It's a line item of attorney, so it covers the coverage.
Yes, it's just not just the balance, it's everybody.
Not specific to the case.
One time.
To your question with regard to the liquor license resolutions, there were 4 businesses that were impacted, 4 businesses who were on resolutions at the last meeting that was ended. One was a liquor license for distribution. The other 3 were for retail. So the distribution was ShopRite Liquor. The retail licenses were Telmark Tavern, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Germania Park. Following that meeting, I drafted a letter to those businesses and included with that letter a form that the state has from the ABC. It's a 2-page form, 1 page filled out by the town, 1 page filled out by the licensee, to allow those 4 businesses to be able to extend their liquor licenses until we were able to have a council meeting where we could conduct business without our agendas being sabotaged as they were at that meeting. Order. Mr. Mayor, you're not recognized. You'll have an opportunity to speak later. So that letter was drafted by me, right, printed. The council vice president visited all 4 of those businesses the very next morning to make sure that they had time to get the page that needed to be filled out by the town completed, and their part completed. And then this governing body actually, in one instance, actually hand-delivered one of those extensions to Trenton personally to ensure that those businesses can continue to operate. So all 4 of those businesses were able to continue to operate since that last meeting. And we made sure of that following that meeting. And the reality is, to answer the other question about leaving, when we left, the advice we got from the attorney that night was that this governing body could not take any further action. And the advice was to leave the meeting. When we left and that door opened, I was the last of the 5 who left, and I made it clear to the council attendant that the meeting had ended. I even said it to a number of people who were standing outside the door. The meeting had ended. 2 of those people are sitting right in the first and second order. Two of those people who heard me say the meeting had ended are sitting in the first 2 rows. So I made it clear that the meeting had ended. The fact is, this governing body, the 5 of us who left that meeting, did so under the advice of the attorney. We fully expected to conduct business that evening. The only reason we weren't able to is because of the mayor putting that resolution on. That not only did you hear one attorney today say that this governing body cannot take action on it, but you have heard another attorney who's sitting 2 seats down from the mayor also say that this governing body can't take action on it. That meeting, excuse me, order. That meeting agenda was sabotaged. The mayor then called the meeting, order. The mayor then called a special meeting of the council the same week at a time when he knew that the attorneys for the council would not be available. So the mayor could then pull another stunt at another meeting. This mayor cared about the business, the business that was on the agenda, he first wouldn't have put that resolution on the agenda. Second of all, he would have allowed this governing body to continue with its business to address those items. And it wouldn't have been me drafting those 4 letters for those businesses and the council vice president running around all 4 of those businesses. The fact is, Mr. Press is sitting in the 3rd row with the blue shirt. If he yells out again, please remove him from the meeting. The fact is, this governing body cared about doing business.
The fact is, you're a liar.
And made sure that those
and a coward.
Mr. The fact is that this governing body cared far more than the mayor did about conducting business.
Stop with disrespecting our mayor.
Yes.
Yes. Our mayor, stop with the disrespect. If you want respect, you earn it.
Order.
You don't want me to order the council president. Take me out. I'll leave.
Gentleman standing up, if he yells out again, please remove him.
I'm not going to waste any more of my time.
Sir, please step out of the meeting. Officer, please remove him from the meeting.
You will be recalled. That's right.
With regard to the question about the road department, because business was not able to be conducted at the last meeting, the answer to that question is that the road department wasn't able to get the funding that they were requested that was under ordinance. That's the end of the questions that were asked. The next item on the agenda that we have, next item on the agenda, order. Next item. Sergeant at Arms. Sergeant at Arms. It's another outburst from the gentleman in the white t-shirt and glasses there standing before you. Please remove him from the meeting. Please remove him from the meeting. Please remove him from the meeting.
I want 2 cheeseburgers.
Come on, you're taking out the seniors now? Picking on the seniors? Yeah, picking on the seniors.
They sell t-shirts.
Screw you! Yeah!
Next on the agenda, we have item number 11, presentations. Presentation by administration regarding plan for Peterson Field Complex. Mr. Mayor, do you have a plan to present to us?
No, we don't have a plan because what we're doing, as you stated, this council wants the plans ahead of time for a presentation, so we had to allocate funds. We have EI Associates coming out, drawing up some plans for the upper parking lot field that we have, utility field, and we're also looking at redoing Peterson 1 and 2 at the bottom, possibly moving football fields down there and bringing them up to the upper parking lot. We received $575,000 from Pondview Estates, so we got some open space money. We have that money, and that's what we're going forward with. And once EI comes back with the tentative plan, we'll do a presentation.
Okay, we'll await your plans and then presentation. Next on. Mr. Kelly.
It's just a recommendation, Mayor. Since
What?
field
There's a microphone.
is just above the DBO field, is there a possibility of opening up the school? The seasons, the adjoining properties of the school board in Rockaway Township?
We looked at that about 15 years ago because they had that walkway from the DBO field.
We also have additional land on Middle Springs.
No, I'm talking about the field. I walk up the walkway, we had other little parking lot field there. We looked into that a couple of years ago. And it just didn't come to fruition. But yeah,
Well, we also have the school purchased the old sofa property that has the 2 dwellings there, a large amount of acres that was over there. Originally, they were going to join their own EDO school for another administration building, and I'm not sure. Is there a possibility of having discussions to potentially have a partnership and have land that's there, just looking for it vacant, there's a dumpster on there?
Yeah, but I don't know what sort of recreation we would put that there. It's already like they already have a swing set and done within that there. But what can actually go into the development? That go way back to San
It does. It actually goes up through the cul-de-sac. You know the cul-de-sac you're talking about. It goes up behind that and goes up to that pathway. It does. It's pretty far. And it just, it's a possibility if we were to reach out to the business administrator, the superintendent, acquiring some additional land and maybe having partnerships where the school can actually adjust some of those costs to offset some of the.
Yeah, the poverty, you know, on that area is fairly waiting, so I don't know what we'll look into that.
Okay. Thank you, Council President.
Next on the agenda is item number 12, ordinances to adopt ordinance 018-12, an ordinance of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for various water utility improvements for the Township of Rockaway and appropriating $585,000 thereof and providing for the issuance of $555,750 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Rockaway to finance the same. Is there a motion?
So,
Motion by Puzio, second by Abrahamson. Before we begin discussion on this, as this ordinance is up for adoption, there's an open to the public on this ordinance only. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this ordinance specifically? Seeing none, we'll close it to the public. Is there any discussion among the council with regard to this ordinance? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Councilmember Quinn.
yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo. Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Abrahamson.
Yes.
Council President Jednak, I vote yes. 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Ordinance is adopted. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 0-18-13, an ordinance to adopt an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a deed dedicating a right-of-way and an easement granting a site triangle respecting real property designated as Lot 1.01 in Block 21502 on the official tax map of the Township of Rockaway, more commonly known as the intersection of Upper Mountain Ave and Pawnee Ave, Rockaway, New Jersey. Is there a motion? Motion by Friedlander, second by Sackett. Again, as this is an ordinance that is up for adoption, there's an ability for the public to comment on this ordinance only. Is there any, I see one member of the public, if you would please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Michael Lardy, 19 North Brookside Drive. Can you just explain what this is? It's what area and what it's an easement's for?
Okay. Do you have any further questions? No. Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments with regard to this ordinance? Hearing none, it's now closed to the public. Mr. Lutz, would you like to explain this ordinance?
Sure. This ordinance for the right-of-way and the site triangle easement is a result of a land use approval for the development at the corner of Pawnee and Upper Mountain Avenue. During that land use approval process, they were required to dedicate a site triangle easement and clean up the right-of-way geometry along the road frontage. And they prepared those documents, and this will protect that land use resolution of approval. I'm sorry. That's correct. That's the 40 units on the corner of that intersection.
Have they all been sold? Have they all been sold?
I do not know the status of that.
Mr. Freeland?
I think they just want people with the first unit.
Are there any further comments by the council with regard to this ordinance? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Abrahamson?
Yes.
Council President Jednak, yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. The ordinance is adopted. Item number 13, the consent agenda. Resolutions R18-81, R18-109 through R-18-116 consecutively, as well as R-18-120 through R-18-123 consecutively, and R-18-125. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Abrahamson, second by Kelly. As this is a consent agenda, there's generally no discussion on these items.
Mr. President, I apologize to interrupt. I noted 122 was not included. I think you called 122, 123. I just wanted to-
That is correct. 122 is not included. 122, so I'll repeat it. R18-81, -109, -111, -112, -113, -114, -115, -116, -120, -121, -123, -125. Is everyone clear on what we are voting on under the consent agenda? We have a motion by Abrahamson and second by Kelly. I will now call the roll. Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio.
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Abrahamson.
Yes.
Council President Jednak. I vote yes. 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. The consent agenda has been passed. The consent agenda, for those who might be wondering, includes all of the liquor licenses. They're effectively now renewed as a result of the action by this governing body, as well as the resolution for the water ski permit for White Meadow Lake, for those who are interested in that resolution as well. Next item on the agenda is item number 14, old business for discussion. We have ordinance 018-11, which was previously introduced, an ordinance of the Township of Rockaway in the County of Morris, New Jersey, providing for various capital improvements for the Township of Rockaway and appropriating $2,529,000 thereof, and providing for the issuance of $1,834,550 in general improvement bonds or notes of the Township of Rockaway to finance same. So this is on the agenda for discussion. When this was last on the agenda for discussion, the Township CFO wasn't at the meeting, and we weren't able to ask questions with regard to the finance aspect of this ordinance. So Ms. Seeger, will you be answering on behalf of the CFO with regard to finance questions with regard to these ordinances that are on the agenda for discussion?
As much as possible.
Okay. Councilmember Kelly, I think you had a question about one of the items that was on this ordinance that has to do with the, see how it's actually referenced.
I know it's referenced in the energy services right there. All right.
I can't hear you.
That's okay. It would be on the backup data that we received. It would be G under community services. Some items that are there. Before I speak, I don't know if there's anybody on the dais here that wishes to go before me, as I would yield the floor to let them speak about if they had anything as per this ordinance that we're talking about here.
Hearing none, you have the floor, Councilmember Kelly.
And I only ask that I've always been very patient with all members of the public coming up and addressing the public portion and in the audience itself. So I just ask for the same respect that I give to you and listen to you.
You toss them in the pot. You toss them all
Officer, please remove, officer, please remove that. Officer, please remove them from the meeting. Councilmember Kelly, you can continue.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, maybe perhaps you can assist me on this. We have the Parks Lake improvement and the Parks Lake memorial that you had settled somewhat of a concept plan in relation to what you do as far as improvements that are there. Would I be accurate on that?
Yeah, it wasn't just what I wanted to do, it was a collective between DPW, the Legion, and I believe the rec department. It wasn't split.
Okay. When we had spoken to the Legion, I just had a couple of questions on it because we wanted to address $50,000 of improvement that we have with the gazebo. Now, I'm not sure that you're going to remember, when I was not an elected official, I had some concerns with regard to the gazebo and made it known to the administration as far back as 2014. And the administration had received that email, and I would only assume that you may have received that in the same, perhaps you haven't.
I don't recall, Mr. Kelly.
Okay.
If you were going to discuss it, you should have spoken.
Mr. Mayor, this is on the agenda for discussion for this purpose.
No, but if he has questions, you can ask.
He's asking his questions now. And Mr. Mayor, you don't have, no, you don't have the floor. Mr. Mayor, allow Mr. Kelly to speak.
And if I could, there are, but unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, there's some continuity issues that we have that don't always address the things that I question upon Mr. Shear as well. So it's somewhat problematic. But knowing I have the venue before, I can address it here, and maybe we can move forward and see what we got here. But with the gazebo and the concern that I had back in 2014 was something that I had watched as a visual of a passing of a younger member of our public. And the gazebo itself was not handicap accessible. And I believe Mr. Sackett can probably concur with me on this concern, where I actually witnessed somebody trying to pick up the wheelchair to try to move it up onto, yeah. And it was very difficult, they almost dropped the individual. So, wanted to know about barrier-free under the Administrative Code for Uniform Construction Code. But we also have a federal code under the ADA, the compliancy of that. And in 1992, there's a transition plan that all municipalities must adhere to. When doing research onto the gazebo, from the information I got and confirmation from our administration, we don't have a CO for that gazebo under the construction that took place since 1988. I have the permits that were here. There's no inspections, there's no final approvals, there's no CO. There's a permit. The process of the permit, the inspections, and the compliance of the CO and the code was never achieved. Now, in 1992, with the ADA, the compliance of the Transition Act that they had, under Title II of Chapter 35 of that, and dealing with the state now with Mrs. Emily Templeton, who handles barrier-free. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, please allow Mr. Kelly to continue.
That we're focusing around enhancing the aesthetics of a memorial, but yet we're not compliant with the ADA requirement for that, potentially putting us into a...
Allocate more money, we'll get a plan drawn up and do it.
Well, what would be more precedent, making it ADA compliant, because we could have a lawsuit for discrimination. I understand that, but before we go through the allocate the money for what you want to do with the improvement, why don't we use this money for that, and then we can move forward with doing a memorial like you want to do the memorial that's there.
You can find more money. Just approve this money, and I'll find more money. Next meeting, we'll come out there and we'll do it. We have to get a bid.
Why don't we address this? Yeah, I understand your mentality of that, your ideology. I don't agree. Why don't we get together and do one plan, have one individual, which would be far cheaper than piecing it out in different projects, to do that? And to be quite honest with you, Mr. Mayor, the telemark clubhouse, or the playground that was donated or purchased from the town, and they had to make that playground ADA compliant with ramps and everything else. Now, talking with the state, it only requires 60 feet with a 112 pitch to make that requirement, where you can kind of go around the octagon. Right, it would be very nice and clean to go all the way around.
So right on the side where the path goes up.
Either way, right or left, depending which way you want to go. It's 90 feet all the way around before the stairs, and 15. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be best to morph it into one project and piecing it out in separate projects before we went to the memorial stage of that? Would you agree on that?
Yeah, we have to go out for bid anyway, so you know what? Very good idea. We'll go out for bid, we'll have it included, if it comes back higher, we'll come out for you guys to ask.
And it could be something that we can do now. Here we go. They've done it in the past. I mean, we're only talking a wood deck.
I'm trying to get our guys to put it in the dug.
That's another thing I got going on.
Yeah, that's, we got that going too, so if you can.
I can. I know we'll talk about that in another portion of new business, but can we be on the same page with that? It's not anything detrimental or whatnot. It's actually potentially saving money, being compliant, avoiding litigation, and it's being ADA compliant. I think some of us on the dais can agree with that.
Yeah, but I look at I agree.
You do?
Yeah.
But the other section that I have on that is just a correction on it, on the...
It's not a reason to hold the vote on it. You can still hold the vote, the vote is good, check, do it, and come back and more money, we'll address the council. We can start moving these projects forward.
But does the money actually make the project move faster? If we haven't even got a bid to know what we're actually going to be used to be spending?
Yeah. We need the money to start moving forward.
You have money now.
Yeah.
Well, you've already had plans to move forward with an estimate that you have there. So you've already done some preliminary without any money.
That was a freedom. Now we're going to have to go out to a...
Let me ask you.
Design, and now we have to go out to...
Better engineer doing it now.
Yeah. And Jim, what do you think about that?
We can work with the consulting engineer collaboratively.
When we did that similar with the manufacturing over at the upper field from the upper parking lot in Peterson.
Yeah, that took 2 years.
You know, I can promise you that we won't be spending any money that's not needed, but we have to decide that, and you guys ultimately, when we go out to bid, you're the final okay when I bring it before you. After we go out to bid, you have the final say, which that's how they move forward.
Ms. Seeger, do you have a copy of the ordinance in front of you? The one we're discussing?
Yeah.
018.
11?
018-11.
Yeah.
I believe the gazebo project is the last item on the list of items. There's a table in that ordinance. Right. It's the last row on that table is the gazebo.
It's the second, it's under item G. in the
Correct.
table. It says, lay improvement.
That's that project. Is there any wording in the ordinance that would preclude the township from pursuing the ADA compliance that this governing body is seeking to have incorporated into that?
No, because the money is for Park Lake improvement and the Park Lake Memorial, so it encompasses all of
So this money, if allocated, can be used for that purpose?
it. As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, are you saying that you're committed to incorporating the ADA component that Mr. Kelly, before any work is done on this, executing this? So with regard to the stakeholders for this project, the gazebo is obviously right across the street from the American Legion.
Yes.
It's used as part of the Memorial Day ceremonies.
That's why I decided to do this.
Right. You mentioned DPW and Rec. I have, as Mr. Kelly referenced, I reached out to the American Legion. I understand that they're in transition, or they've transitioned to a new commander. I spoke to the outgoing commander who wasn't familiar with this project.
Yeah, he wasn't involved.
Okay, so has the American Legion leadership?
Yeah, they were the ones involved.
Okay. There's also a 9/11 component?
Yes.
Or is there a 9/11 committee that's consulted with regard to this project?
Nope.
Shouldn't we consult with the 9/11 Association?
Moving forward, yeah. I know the three residents' names that passed away in 9/11. I don't know.
But there are also formal organizations set up for 9/11
You do
remembrance.
that, what's the difference if you put something on the stone or something like that?
I just think as far as having the right stakeholders with regard to this project, we ought to reach out to those organizations that exist. So, will you do that?
Well, let's see what they say, yeah.
Okay. I'll take that as a yes, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
yes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or? Okay, Mr. Kelly and then Ms. Abrahamson following.
Mrs. Seeger, on that same section of G, Community Services, the acquisition of the grounds master mower, that's not the $35,000. It was combined with the zero turn as well as the ground master. The discount that they did to reduce the amount of money from $50,000 to $35,000 contributed to the $15,000 they're willing to reduce the amount that they were requesting for a leaf app, which they're going to continue to use the one in the past, which is in good use. It just wasn't as the size of the one we borrowed or received from the school. So I don't see the zero turn in there other than ground master mower, which is not accurate for $35,000. There were three components when we went through on
I
page
remember that
249 of our budget.
It was a reduced amount.
I have those pages here for you to reference.
I have them too as well, but based on memory.
I know.
Do you need the
I
pages?
was trying to get more than one lawnmower.
It only says the one that's here for the $35,000. It doesn't indicate the additional mower that's there.
Well, it says acquisition of a Grandmaster mower.
Yep, that's one of them.
If they can get more than one, they would take more than one.
Will we put the other one on there that was on originally?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I just thought that we could identify what we're purchasing actively.
Yeah, it will depend on when they go out and see what they can get for that price.
Well, they've already gone out to bid.
They did?
That's what Recreation had informed me.
Okay, I haven't seen.
And there was a period of time before the purchasing, but then there would be an adjustment in the price.
I can't answer that question, but I can get the answer.
Okay, I appreciate it. Just that it's corrected what it is for the expenditure of the $35,000 rather than the impression and the optics. It looks like this ground master is $35,000, which it's not.
Good, I didn't know they wanted to bid.
Because I asked questions during the budget portion. You weren't willing to give me information that they were.
Order. It's not funny at all, actually. Are there any, Council Vice President Abraham?
I have something, being that this is titled the Park Lake Improvement, I've heard it more than once tonight. Back in 2016, I had several residents express the issue that the Park Lake itself is in bad shape in Rockaway Township section of Park Lake. I inquired about the fountain that has not been working since 2016, and several of the residents living across the street are concerned that this is going to be a mud pit eventually. I know that the borough is already starting beautification at their end and will be working, has asked to work with us several times to dredge and fix the lake. So before we do expend money on, other than making the ADA compliant, which I understand is imperative, I think the lake should be preserved. The lake is, the fountain is not working. Several of the residents across the street approached me in 2016. Council President at the time, Antonelli, took the lead with that, and I never heard another thing about it. I did hear from several of the residents that, asking me, when is this going to be fixed? Now, before we fix the gazebo and beautify the grounds, I think the lake issues have to be addressed. I mean, this is the first time we're bringing it to the 75, but it just was a light bulb when it said, I did it in 2016, but that we're making Park Lake improvements. We're not going to have a decent lake at that end of Park Lake. So are there any plans to get that fountain improved, to circulate that water, or to have some of that dirt dredged out so that we do have a lake in our section of Rockaway Township? I don't know we do any improvements on the gazebo other than making it ADA compliant. That's where the money should be going. for Park Lake's improvement
You
is
do know how
linked.
much Park Lake improvements are?
No, that's what I'm asking.
We
Don't
sat,
ever
we
know the
sat,
answer.
we sat with the borough, I think it was roughly 2015, possibly, and our portion to dredge that lake out was $475,000, if I remember correctly, to dredge the lake out. So all I asked in return at the time, if we were gonna do something like that, is are our residents gonna be allowed to use beach passes at Parks Lake? And guess what they said?
No.
No. So guess what I said?
No.
That's why I remember it. As far as the fountain gets clogged up every several months, like seaweed or.
It hasn't been running in years.
Joe had it running last year for a little bit. It gets clogged up, it gets clogged up every single week, though. So we
Well,
look
I mean,
at.
the issue is that we're not going to have a lake up there. That's a
I
problem.
mean, if you guys want to get together and allocate that money, that's fine.
Well, there's
Okay,
got to be
so-
some grants or something we can possibly.
They actually-
Councilmember Kelly, if you want to finish what you were just saying.
We actually looked into grants with them, but the only grants that they were offering at the time was to fix their dam at the other end. So they really weren't offering any grants to dredge the lake itself, because we were going to go into a joint effort to do that.
And if I may follow that, is that now they don't know how much is following flood lakes and we'll be involved in the telemarket, the community that's there. Multiple lake communities have gone through litigation, but Telemark, we also have Shawnee, which one of our members, employees here are part of that lake. You got this, yes, the team that's there. The litigation is primarily going through against residents of a non-mandatory dues because the courts have ruled that it's in the best interest of the environment itself, of the community, to invest in that, to preserve it. We have grants that are being given issued over the Rockaway Borough, and I know you're aware that I reached out to Rockaway Borough Council with ideas about using Parks Lake for potential merger of holiday theme during the holidays. We also, I was questioned about the lake and dredging. You remember the public came out here and addressed that. Not the only conversation that took place. However, there's always a component of litigation or threat of litigation because of us not dredging or taking care of our side is creating an issue for the other side. And I don't want to get into that potentiality of litigation because we're not doing our due diligence, which then could be, in the same sense, eroding away someplace else that's on there. I'm not saying that's the facts of it. There's also that common concern that could take place with that. Who would be responsible for what? Like you mentioned, the fountain keeps getting caught up with sediment. Well, the amount of sediment coming down from the stream on our end, which we used to have a cleaning of that in the past. I witnessed that when we were young. It was kind of neat to watch. And now we're not doing that. But I don't want to fall in that rut. What if Rockaway Borough says, you know what, this is happening again, we're spending more money. However, in this grant aspect of it all, again, we had like a joint project, rather than saying, well, you gotta give me this for us to give you that. Well, why don't we just do the right thing? and try to
We
preserve
looked
it?
at, like I said, we looked at a grant, and the only thing that they got the grant for was the dam remediation.
Well, the team was on their side, which they would be the
Exactly.
recipient of the grant. I understand
I'm
that.
saying, but we did a joint thing for the dredging. So if you're saying something else is new up, we'll take a look at it again.
Is there a determination maybe that we can go saying that there is no concern of our area to their area? Or we just don't want to even investigate of having
You can,
potentiality?
listen, next year's budget, you can allocate, and we'll get a price on how much it would cost to dredge our end of the lake, and then I'll stick it in the budget.
Well, I'm looking for a joint effort of like, hey, you know what, maybe we do have an issue there. Be proactive about an issue rather than reactive to an issue. That's all I'm trying to say. Because it was brought up, like it wasn't, I didn't bring it up here, they brought it up to me, and obviously you have.
You have a couple of neighbors saying you have an issue. We have a couple of neighbors that come up to the speeding. There have a couple of neighbors saying they have a bear problem. I mean, we have issues in the town. We're a large municipality, for 45 square miles. So there are issues, and we have to prioritize these issues. But for dredging a lake that really, like, and I know before, to do that, we can do it. We just allocate the money. That's it. I mean, that's all that can be done. And how long will it last? Right? So.
Well, there's engineers that we have that are different than the dams. When we're taking it down, and the rehabilitation of Lake Ames Dam. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we say, we need to spend for it, it seems like, but we say it enough, no.
Well, I understand that, and you can disagree on that, as well, but there's also there was a maintenance plan that we have in place that we haven't followed, perhaps. Maybe we wouldn't be at that level.
We can put the maintenance plans in the budget every year if you guys just address it, no?
I wish it was just that easy.
It is that easy.
But,
money's money, I mean, you got maintenance
again,
to do recreational, that's what I'm saying. You only have a certain amount of money that goes to each budget, and you got.
I work within my means, my personal budget.
And that's what we're doing.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with regard to the issues brought up by Councilmembers Kelly and Abrahamson, do we need to make any modifications to this? Is the entry that's there for the gazebo project, given the mayor's commitment to incorporate the ADA? Okay. And then we'll wait to hear back from the administration about the other item.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger, do you happen to know if this ordinance was advertised for this meeting?
Yes, it was, and actually, I'm going to ask you to please move forward. We have some pavement to do and everything, and I will get you the answer, but I don't want to hold everything up for a long time.
That is our goal.
And we've advertised 4 times, and I'd like
Because it's been advertised and it's an ordinance that's up for adoption, we have to have it open to the public portion for this ordinance. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this ordinance? If you do, please step up to the microphone. If you are interested, if you would please all just line up so that we can go one after another. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kitty Platts, Tubal Holloway. If anybody has a desire to do anything with Parks Lake, then do it. It seems like a fairly reactive answer, and it seems like something that's intentionally just brought up to impede. We're sitting here on an ordinance that I've just been told has been published 4 separate times. If you really want to dredge the lake, if you're so concerned about the quality of the lake, why haven't you in the past 2 years brought it up? If you brought it up in 2016 and you're so concerned about it, why didn't you ever follow up? It's nonsense. So if you care about it, create an ordinance, get some funding and do it. So when somebody brings up something to improve our municipality and your answer is, well, we're not doing the other things, you've made very clear you have lots of authority, council, so why don't you do it? Let's move forward.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. Before you even think about dredging, you better get a specialist to come in and check it out, because dredging is almost an impossible project to do. It's very, very expensive, and it may not solve the problem that you have over there. We have talked about dredging a number of times in White Meadow Lake, and we have been told by our consultant that that is not the way for us to improve our lake. Sometimes you can improve them with certain chemicals, so you really should get someone that knows what they're talking about before you even think about putting money in the budget for dredging.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name and address for the record.
Robert Carmagnola, 2 Durham Road, Rockaway, New Jersey. So I kind of see a problem coming up here where we might open up another Pandora's box like we did with the basketball courts. So now is the gazebo going to get shut down because of what we're having? But here's an idea. Why not? And I understand what you're saying about tit for tat, right? They're worried about the water coming into Rockaway Borough because it's affecting their beaches. So is there a possibility to scrap the whole plan and start over, and then maybe we can figure out on our side whether we can add a beach somewhere if they won't allow us to use the beach on that side? If we're going to have to redo the project with the handicap accessible, why not start all over? Why not start all over and then really do it like we need a plan for Peterson? Why not do a plan for this? Just totally start over. The money's there, put it aside, table it, get somebody to come in, see about the dredging, and then maybe we can have a beach on one side, because right now all we do is we use it for walking. So I know there's concerts that go on there. I wouldn't mind sitting in a beach chair on the sand listening to a concert, you know? I mean, we don't have that up by us. We don't have anything like that by us, but maybe that's the idea. So instead of piecemealing it, let's just scrap the whole thing, start over, get compliant, and then maybe see if we can do a really, really nice project that our side of the town can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Please state your name and address for the record.
Lisa Salberg, 10 Bergen Hill. So about 8 or 10 years ago, Rockaway Borough Environmental Committee came to our Environmental Committee meeting to discuss what we could do about the lake. They thought that they had enough money to dredge the lake and have a whole plan put together. They had $35,000 put aside. That's not even enough to draw a plan up. So I don't necessarily know that the borough has the money or the resources or the grants to do what they need to do. They were very unrealistic when they came to us 8, 10 years ago and talked to us as an environmental committee, and Pat Matarazzo gave them the list of things that would have to be done to either dredge or to service or to remediate in some way what was going on with the Parks Lake situation. It is a very complex ecosystem. This is not a quick fix. You can't just redraw a plan and put a beach on another side. You have wetlands, you have a lot of different environmental issues going on there, including we may actually have salamanders there, which are endangered. So there's a lot going on there. We really need to look at the whole plan. It would be really nice to have a beach there, but I don't know how realistic it is based on the environmental footprint of the lake.
Thank you for your comments. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jawahar Desai, 15 Lear Place, Rockaway. Just want to second what was said by some of the previous speakers. Let's look at the environmental impact on the lake before you do anything significant like dredging. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If you would just hold your comments for a moment. Seeing no other members of the public wishing to speak, we're closing it to the public. Mr. Mayor, you have something you wanted to say?
One important thing too is that was a concern at the time. When they said that they're going to dredge the lake, they have to put that stuff somewhere. So they said all the sediment that they pull out of Parks Lake would have to stay right next to it.
Yeah, considered contaminated.
So it was had to stay there for a couple months, people walk away, or take it up to Mount Pond.
No. It's not about taking it to location. This goes on site. It's not considered contaminated. You don't need any permit to move it. If it's moved off site, then you would need that permit to do so. But you wouldn't dump it of a contaminant over up in the pond. It is considered.
I know it is, but it's not.
It is, though. The word contaminant is there. You can't go around it. So you have to bring it to a remediation site like Tilcon or Weldon or whatever have to accept that. So, again, it's just being proactive of eliminating any potentiality from what they had brought up. And like Mrs. Salberg had indicated before, in a conversation that took place a while ago, but again, it's recent of January, only asking about the theme of the holiday. One of the council members had brought that up and made a mention of that, and that there's been some type of disconnect or whatever reason they did. But it was just something to look at that's there. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Carmagnola asked to consider scrapping and starting over with a comprehensive plan. It's hard to disagree with that rationale. Is that something you want to consider as far as the plan?
We'll look into that because the beach over by the gazebo, but we have the drain pipes coming over there and the river coming in, so the beach would have to be along lake use, that little section of gas. We can look into it.
So is it fair to ask you to please take a look and consider his comments as you take a look at, since you're going back to the drawing board anyway, with regard to the ADA component?
Mr. Novak would probably be a real good assistant, or Dave Siamba from the Chester Hall.
Okay.
Not anymore, but the DEP would be the main consultant to go through that.
Are there any other comments or questions with regard to Ordinance O-18-11? Hearing none, we've done the public input. I will call it for a vote. This is a vote to adopt since it's already been advertised. Correct, Ms. Seeger?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Fuzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo? Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Sackett. Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Abrahamson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jetnak votes yes. I count 7 yes, 2 no, 0 abstentions. The ordinance is now adopted.
I'd like to thank you, council, for approving that.
Thank you.